Hello there and welcome to today's video. First up, I'm sorry there wasn't a video last week, but I've been having mega problems with my hands recently and yeah, I just needed to take a break from the studio, which is never pleasant for an artist, but I've developed, I think, some calluses on my fingers which are really painful considering they're so small, so I'm basically going to have to find different ways of working as I go on. So if you see plasters or weird things on my fingertips as time goes on, yeah, that's going to be the reason why. I guess it's something that happens to most sculptors at some point in their career, but thankfully it's not so much of an issue while I'm sculpting. It's mainly while I'm working on the computer that is, that's causing the problems. I work with a stylus on a tablet and it's, very much like a pen, so I think it's just the friction on your fingers as it's something that you're always using. So yeah, it's annoying, but I guess it's not the worst thing in the world, but yeah, I'm hopeful that I'll be able to establish some new ways of working, so I'll do a video on that at some point if you're interested and you're also suffering a bit with your hands. But anyway, today I'm going to be showing you a process video for a recent polymer painting that I made for my Halloween countdown, and for this time it's one of my favourite Halloween themed movies, and it's the Amityville Horror. And weirdly, this one took forever to make, and I'm still not entirely sure why, but it was really about trying to replicate 1970s hairdos with polymer clay, and believe me, it's mega hard. But I'm forever learning, and certainly I was with this one. And I'm going to split it into two parts, so I'll be back halfway through just to have a little chat about Skillshare. So to start the process, I just need to roughly work out where I want the house to go. And I'm working with the 1979 version of the Amityville Horror, which, is the original. I think there's been a fair few Amityville Horror movies and iterations made through the years, but for me, in this case, the original is the best. So now I've got that all plotted out, I can start work on it. Well, it's essentially the chimney breast, which is right on the front of the house. And in terms of composition, I'm going to be inspired again by American Gothic, which I used as inspiration for my Donnie Darko piece fairly recently as well, and I think it worked out really well, so I just wanted to do it again with this one really, just to see how it works out. And you know me, I love a bit of detail. For me, the Amityville Horror is probably one of the spookiest films out there, and it probably seems pretty tame these days, but I've got a really weird personal experience that kind of mirrors one of the scenes in the film. And basically, when I was really little, I'd spent the night in my parents' bed, and I think my mum was shouting me to get up for school, and I just didn't want to. It was winter and it was really cold. I just didn't want to get out of bed really. And then from nowhere, I heard a really creepy voice saying, "Get up." And I kind of froze, and then I heard it again. And then I got up. I think most people would after hearing that. And I've got 3 brothers, and nobody was around that morning, so I'm pretty sure it wasn't them. So I've got no explanation for it basically. Now, if this was just the one occurrence, I could have written it off as, childhood imagination, but my brother had a very similar experience in that room years later. So he was a young adult, essentially, and he was on his own in the house, and he heard a voice say, "Get out," in that room. Again, so I don't know what was going on, but that house creeped me out, I have to say, so I was pretty pleased to leave in my teenage years. So I'm just going to finish off working on the roof here, and I'll take a break for a moment. Now then, let's talk about Skillshare. So they sent an email to all of their teachers recently, of which I am one, and they're basically changing things in the form of royalty payments. So I've just got the email up now because I want to remember what I'm on about basically, but they've announced that they're getting rid of the royalties pool that they've had up until now, and they're going to be replacing that with a teacher fund. There isn't a lot of detail as to what the difference is there, but I'll just show you this extract from the email and feel free to pause it if you like. I should also mention what's happening with teacher referrals at Skillshare. Historically, that was, I think, at $10 per referral that you brought across to the platform. Recently, however, or certainly over the last few months, Skillshare tweaked that so that instead of the flat fee of $10, you would get 60% of the first payments that a new customer would buy, basically. So whether that was a monthly fee or an annual fee, the Skillshare teacher would get 60% of that. Under the new system, however, that 60% actually increases to 90%, which seems like a good thing. So I guess what I'm surmising from that, and this is my opinion only, is that like many businesses out there, they're basically struggling to attract new customers as well as, retaining customers that are already there, and they're just trying to find new and inventive ways of attracting more business really. So that's where they're really trying to get their teachers to almost act as salespeople really, to attract more business. What I'm uncomfortable with, however, is that it just seems to be another platform that is really trying to get you to spend as much time on there as possible. Like Instagram, etc. really kind of rewards people for being on the platform, as much as they can, to create more engagements and to get more people, interacting with their posts or their reels, etc. It just feels like another form of that. So they'll be rewarding teachers that are, constantly on the platform and really centering their whole business around Skillshare really, which I don't want to do. I see Skillshare really as, a bit of a side hustle along everything else that I do, and as much as I enjoy being on there, I'm really starting to think now, is this what I want to be doing long term really, or whether I want to start incorporating more kind of teaching work here on YouTube really, and that's the quandary that I have at the moment. I'd love to know actually whether you'd be interested in seeing kind of more model making tutorials here on my channel. So yeah, let me know down below, or if you've any other suggestions that I might be interested in hearing. But for now, I'll stop babbling on and I'll show you the second part of Amityville. So back to my Amityville horror piece, and I'm just working on James Brolin's face here. Incidentally, my camera settings were a bit light on this footage, so apologies for that. Basically, I'm just learning how to use my camera for overhead work because I've been using my iPhone for, well, years, but I was never happy with the footage. So luckily, I got an arm for my desk recently. Oh, Ian got it for me actually, but it means I can, film from overhead. So hopefully, as time goes on and I learn more about my camera settings, things should hopefully be, a bit clearer to watch, basically. I'm always in awe of other artists that have really top quality footage, so it's a mission of mine to get there, but like everything, it's always a bit of a journey really. So now I can start working on Margot Kidder, and for whatever reason, I always picture Karen Allen in my head whenever I think about Margot Kidder. I think because they were in iconic movies at a very similar time, and they both had, you know, really strong female parts basically. I think Margot Kidder was, of course, in Superman, and Karen Allen was in the Indiana Jones movies, and they look, you know, kind of similar but not really. But, you know, for whatever reason, Karen Allen always pops into my head, and I think it might be because I had an auntie that looks a little like her. So hopefully this will end up looking more like Margot than Karen. I felt really cosy while I was making this piece, even though it was still quite warm in the studio. Something about, you know, really cosy jumpers, isn't there, at this time of year, that just make you want to kind of huddle up. So once I was happy with Margot, I then started work on James Brolin's hair, and this took forever. I still can't really fathom why it took so long, but I had to experiment with a number of different hairdos basically, because I just couldn't replicate what was going on his actual head. So yeah, I think I spent, you know, a whole day playing around with this, but you know, I ended up with something that I was pretty happy with, so it was worth it. I think the worst case is when you end up working on something for ages and you still hate it at the end. So, you know, I'm taking it as a win that I think it works out okay in the end. So now I've baked this polymer painting and I can start work on James's beard, which should hopefully make him look a lot more like the character, really. You know, he's just got loads of hair basically. And once all the clay's in situ, I can then start some work with my needle tool, just creating a bit of detail really to make it look a lot more like hair. So that's coming together pretty nicely. And once I was happy with the beards, I then just baked it again basically. And here it is, all done. And considering this piece took ages to make, I'm really happy with it, and you know, it's certainly one of my favourite polymer paintings to date. I hope you enjoyed that. Give it a like if you got this far, subscribe if you're new, and I'll be back next week, no doubt with another Halloween themed process video. So I'll see you then. Take care. Bye bye. And now the video's ended, look who's woken up.